This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Welcome, Talk Catholic, the website.com, your host, Tim Kilcoyne. No agendas here, just the straight and narrow, through Mary to Jesus, the Catholic faith proclaimed and preserved. Hope to see you here every week. Talk Catholic with Tim Kilcoyne. It is our first Saturday, which means our interview, part 2 with Jesse Romero, late Catholic evangelist. And don't you forget those first Saturday devotions. Remember, it's 5 consecutive first Saturdays where you go to confession, go to Mass, receive communion, say the Rosary, and reflect 15 minutes on a particular mystery of the Rosary for Our Lady. Let's get right to Jesse and start in. We'll continue on with our book review, Man Your Post, in the second half. We'll pick it up where Jesse really highlights the number one goal for husbands and fathers of marriage and family life.
The first thing on every single guy's mind when he wakes up is, I got to get my family to heaven.
And get it in order. And therefore, the flip side, the vice of a guy, is to shirk that responsibility, no?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly what the devil wants us to do. He wants us to fall into the sin of sloth, the sin of acedia.
Yeah.
That, basically just put things off for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And this way he has a guy exactly where he has. A lot of guys just get out of work, couch potato.
I was just going to say couch potato.
Yeah, they let, honey, you take the kids to catechism. Yeah, honey, you take the kids to mass. Yeah, honey, you take the kids to confession.
Exactly.
Honey, you lead grace before meals.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, you can even look at verses, like the very first book of the Bible, Genesis 2:18.
Yeah.
Then the Lord God said, it is not good that a man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him.
Yeah.
So there we see Adam is created first, and then Eve is created after Adam from the side of Adam's rib.
Right.
And the special word that's used in Hebrew where Eve is called the helper, fit for him, that Hebrew word, it means someone who aids, protects, and defends you, especially in battle. So Eve's job, a woman's job, is to aid, protect her husband, defend, especially in battle. The man is the general.
Yes.
The man is the priest of the home. The woman is the helper. What's the mission of every Catholic man? Get your family to heaven. What's the mission of every Catholic woman based on Genesis chapter 2:18? Help your husband get your family to heaven. Not nag your husband, not be a Karen, not tell your husband what to do, not wag your finger on him. Help him.
Not be his boss.
Yeah. Submit to him.
Yeah.
The Bible says in Ephesians 5:22.
It's a very beautiful thing. I'm reminded of a joke I heard by Father Larry Richards one time about, where was Adam when Eve was biting the apple? He was right next to her with his head down.
Yeah.
Is it not, and you know better than I, is it not the devil's number one goal to confuse the sex roles? To get them upside down, huh?
Yeah, we have this right now in living color like we've never seen it before.
I know it.
With first we started with the homosexual movement back in right around 69. That's when it exploded for the first time.
Yeah.
And then it's, from the homosexual movement, it went on to the abortion movement. And it just keeps morphing.
Yeah.
It just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
Now we have the whole transgender movement.
Right.
And the transgender movement is straight from the pit of hell. Yeah. Why do I say that? Father Gabriel Amor, probably the most well-known exorcist in the 20th century, he passed away in 2019. He was Rome's exorcist.
Yeah.
He said in an interview, the devil wants to confuse our children about their gender. He said that right before he passed away.
Wow.
The devil wants to confuse our children about their gender.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely, this is straight from the pit of hell.
Unbelievable. Wow. Makes sense. When you think of how many, I don't say this sarcastically, how many women are trying to wear the pants and the guys are trying to wear the skirt.
Yeah, exactly.
And the kids are witnessing this,
right,
know?
Exactly. And it's our job, as people that know their faith, it's a spiritual work of mercy to instruct the ignorant.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual, I think it's paragraph 2247 of the Catechism.
And let me just ask you, we assume, therefore, there is this confusion of the sex roles, and it permeates every sphere, every milieu, the church herself, right? The infrastructure within the church. We're seeing this reflected in structures of authority within the church.
It's affecting our church as well, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's an effeminization factor at work amongst our leadership that's resulting in kind of a chaos, right? A lot of confusion, certainly ambiguity. Can you speak to that connection? Where are the Marines in the priesthood?
Yeah. Now, the way the devil has attacked the Catholic Church in the last 100 years, he's attacked the Catholic Church using his three weapons. I would call the three M's: Masonry,
okay,
Marxism,
yep,
and modernism.
Excellent.
That's the threefold attack against the Catholic Church in the last 100 years. There have been approved Marian apparitions that have said exactly what I just told you right now.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're in the fight of our life right now.
Yeah.
Probably, and they all work together. Modernism, Marxism, and Masonry, they all work together. This is the triple daughters of Satan.
Yep.
And we find ourselves right now in the throes of modernism, especially. Pope Pius X said that modernism is the synthesis. All the heresies in the Catholic Church in 2,000 years are all synthesized within modernism.
Yep.
This is the final battle, and the final battle that we're fighting right now is with this whole transgender ideology, homosexual marriage, killing babies, abortion.
Yep.
What we're fighting is what the last seer of Fatima, before she passed away, and she wrote a letter to Cardinal Caffarra, said that the final battle between Satan and the church will be against the family and against marriage.
Yes.
That's exactly what we're seeing right now. And
yes.
A lot of our priests who have been basically psyopsed through modernism,
yep.
They're silent about this issue.
Yeah.
They actually see nothing wrong with it.
No, they don't know the battle is on. They're not sure that there is a battle. That's
and the way they try to shut you down is they'll just label you, oh, you're a homophobe or a transphobe.
Yeah, or schismatic. for daring to challenge their authority. That was one of my other questions for you. Have we not kept too much of a halo effect over our leaders, quote unquote, when in fact they haven't been, holding the fort? They're not, in fact. I was thinking of the expression, blessed are the poor in spirit. A poor in spirit representing those that are trying to be faithful, and they're not getting support from above.
Yeah, we know a whole slew of those.
Yeah.
Bishop Strickland, Father Pavone, I mean, the list goes on. I know so many good holy priests and stuff right now that are canceled as a result of actually speaking the truth.
White martyrdoms.
Yeah, and they've been sidelined, and looks like they'll never be back reinstated in our lifetime. The way things are looking,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, as Catholics, we have the absolute right to bring things up to our pastors, our bishops, that we believe are wrong.
Yeah,
that's it. Just all you got to do is read Canon 212. It's right there laid out in the Code of Canon Law. I think it's also paragraph 907 of the Catechism.
Right.
It says, yep, you Catholics can confront their pastors, do it with respect, but absolutely you can confront your pastors on matters which pertain to the good of the church.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Fraternal charity.
Instruct those who are ignorant. Fraternal correction, we call it, fraternal correction.
Right.
And the Bible also is very clear. The Bible also says that, speak the truth in charity.
Yes,
and
yes.
So we have to do this.
This, this effeminization factor, I believe, is, the devil's way of muting our leadership. That this is exactly what has happened to our homily across the board in way too many places. It's deteriorated into kind of a systematic, theological, semantic gobbledygook, where you're not hearing anything relative to the world that we're living in relative to concrete subjects that fall under the Ten Commandments. Everything is morphed into social justice, and immigration and climate change. But there's just nothing being said relative to these direct assaults, like you're talking about transgender stuff, which is basically letting you decide reality. I mean, this is the ultimate affront to manliness, certainly, and the family in general, that you're going to decide that the chair is not a chair. It's madness. It's really unbelievable. But I am curious at the practical level. It really comes down to, and I'm reading, as I mentioned, I just started reading that book by Kennedy Hall on Terror of Demons. He starts the book out on the first chapter all about the devil, and basically saying that if you don't believe in him, you're already out of the game. Okay, that just a recognition of the evil one starts or helps. Kind of like saying you're Catholic. Okay, that's great, but now, what does that mean? You may say you believe in the devil by way of, our baptismal promises, at the beginning of the new year, etc. But what does that mean? Certainly it means a recognition of sin. And speak a little bit, I wanted to get into the very kind of ambiguous subject of sin versus dysfunctional thinking. I had Father David Nix on recently. He did a wonderful video with Taylor Marshall on this, the 10 signs of narcissism. Can you speak to this just a little bit about these two things, a lack of recognition of the devil himself and a lack of consciousness of mortal and venial sin?
Two people have told us about this lack of recognition of the devil. C.S. Lewis, in his book Screwtape Letters, he actually says that that's one of the ways that the devil, one of his tactics for the devil to tempt man and to basically influence man, is by making men believe that he doesn't exist. So that's tactic number one. Okay. And that's and also Pope John Paul II, he also mentioned that in his lifetime, in his pontificate. Okay. He said, I'm going to paraphrase him. He said, you'll never see the power of the cross unless you believe in the reality of the devil. Okay. Think about that.
Very good.
He goes, you'll never understand the power of the cross if you don't understand the reality of the devil. Because people seem to forget when all the verses and the prayers that we say about Jesus saves, he didn't come to save us, from bad habits, or come to save us, from a bad weekend or from a hangover. He came to save us from hell and the devil. Yeah. Every time you see any verse on save or any prayer on save, S-A-V-E, that means he came to save us from hell and the devil forever.
Exactly.
So I think we as Catholics, Pope John Paul II also said back in the 80s, he said that most Catholics now in the West have lost their sense of sin. We just kind of lost our sense of sin for, people just, they...
You don't even hear the expression. I mean, the actual word.
You hear it very few times in homily, to be honest with you.
There was a wonderful young priest. I don't want to give his identity away, but he was of a foreign persuasion, and he started talking about the devil and sin and the need for confession and all the good stuff, right? Classic Catholic theology. I went up to him. He was saying his prayers after Mass in the chapel. Okay, you don't often see that. And I went up to him and I said, Father, thank you. What you did was you taught the church's teachings from the pulpit. It was very easy, wasn't it? And I had a big smile, and he had a big smile, and I put my forehead right up to him like in the movie Rain Man. I am so indebted, but I was thinking to myself, I wonder how long it's going to be before the crackdown. And a few,
Yeah, those priests don't last long.
Yeah, it was only a few Sundays later that all of a sudden he's reading off of a script, okay? And it wasn't anything, no dynamism.
You know who told him to read a script? It was a bishop.
Well, I would argue it was. I would argue those around the bishop who don't even have the bishop's authority. That's what my contention is that the infiltration of the chancery locally and almost every other one of these chanceries. These are all. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I'm a 1970s theology grad from a Jesuit university. That's exactly where most of these people are, who are in leadership positions in the church. And I can assure you, as I've said in former shows, I have my undergraduate books still right steps away in the garage where I'm sitting right now. And I've got the evidence. I was going to throw them away, and I won't do it, because I know that if anybody ever challenges me as to where this garbage came from, almost every single one of my books from the 1970s were anti-magisterial teaching.
Wow.
Every one of them. I got them piled up in a corner of the garage on like a tower. And if anybody ever wants to see, this is where it all came from, ladies and gentlemen. They bought inclusive language, liberation theology, social justice takes over completely for the commandments, psychology takes over completely for theology. They just ran with it as if there was nothing wrong with it. And I was just like a rookie theology undergrad, and what I'm saying, there's something wrong with this, because they're not teaching what the catechism teaches. And I used to come home to my mom and dad and I say, we're going to have a crisis big time. I don't know how many years down the road, but this is not the same church. There's something else developing here, and that's like 40. This is 1977 to 1981. I was there, and I went back and got a graduate degree in the later 80s. It was getting worse.
We'll hold it right there and get back to Jesse Romero at the end of the month. This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. On the other side, man your post. Again, the general theme, ladies and gentlemen, reclaiming Catholic masculinity. We must always go back to St. Joseph. Joseph, most courageous, be not afraid. Pope St. John Paul II. Courage has many faces. Most of them are never seen. Not all heroes are found on the battlefield, the ballpark, or broadcast TV. Most are found at home, at work, in church, in everyday life. Real acts of courage are momentary choices that ripple into a tsunamic grace that can change a landscape or a life. The virtue of fortitude enables one to conquer fear, even fear of death, and to face trials and persecutions. Joseph was a courageous man. While he seemed to have lived a quiet and humble existence, it was anything but, considering he was called to Father, the Son of God. But he handled this call with prayerful resolve. At each crossroad, he chose to stand in the face of fear and be courageous in the moment. Joseph's life may seem extraordinary, but as you read Tom's story, you will see how each small, ordinary choice we make can have an enormous impact on the lives of others. And the man of the hour here for this week is Dr. Tom Nelson, and the topic is Be Bold. On a hot July morning in 2008, a momentary act of blind courage turned my world upside down. The fateful day started out in a usual frantic way. After necessary hospital rounds and rushed nursing home visits, I finally arrived at my medical practice a few minutes behind schedule. I hustled quickly from room to room to keep pace with a full docket of patients and a noon physician meeting that was tacked on to the end of my already tight schedule. Between patients, my nurse handed me the chart of a 72-year-old white unmarried female named Joan. Joan had been a patient of mine since I began my practice in family medicine. My nurse indicated that there were several recent records ordered by Joan's cancer specialist to review in her chart. I had known that Joan had stage 4 lung cancer. Her tests revealed that her cancer was not responding to chemotherapy or radiation. During my 18 years as Joan's physician, I knew her to be a very private person. Some might have referred to her as a loner. Despite her tendency to keep to herself, Joan had a warm and welcoming smile that always brightened up the room. She had enjoyed the outdoors and exercise, evident by the well-manicured lawn of her beautifully landscaped home and the long walk she enjoyed with her dog, Punky. Joan had a passion for sports. As a White Sox fan, she would constantly rib me about my Cubbies. She almost knew more about the Chicago Bears than their general manager. More than anything, Joan had a special place in her heart for youth and high school football. Living across from a youth football field, She would spend her weekends watching them practice and compete. She especially enjoyed reading about the success of local student athletes as they moved on to high school. On that particular day, as she sat nervously across from me in my office, we spoke at length about the progression of her cancer. Together, we agreed that it was time to stop all treatment. As protocol, I began to inquire about our out-of-town relatives and friends that could be present for her during this time and help facilitate and address social issues or anticipated needs. Her response was a blank stare. She was embarrassed to admit that she had no one in her life to fill this intimate role. I had no idea that all her relatives were deceased. It seemed that her private lifestyle did not lend itself to having supportive friends. At this point, she worked up the clumsy courage to ask me a burning question. "I don't know how to say this, Dr. Tom. I need your help." As I sat in the presence of this frightened and humble woman, my mouth became dry and my heart started racing. I arrived at the realization that Joan was asking me to become her caregiver. This personal request was totally outside of my comfort zone. In a moment of startling courage, I responded with, "Of course." The rest of that day was a blur. Driving home, I pondered my "of course." I was unclear if my response was a question or an affirmation. The more I thought of this unique encounter, I felt a tug at my heart that I could and should help. After seeking counsel from my wife, my father, and her attorney, I respectfully agreed to become her caregiver. Over the next 4 months, my already chaotic life became insane. In addition to my duty as the managing partner of my medical practice, I was also the team physician and football coach at Nazareth Academy, a local Catholic high school run by the Sisters of St. Joseph. With all the responsibility I shouldered outside of my home, my wife and 2 children received what was left over at the end of these hectic days. Nearly at the expense of my mental health, my yes to help Joan required me to make serious and much-needed changes in my life. My "of course" was like an "I do," a covenant relationship with an essential stranger. To top it off, Joan was not the easiest person to work with. In her fear and mistrust, she initially would not invite me into her home. Instead, she would hand me her laundry list of errands through a partially open door. To make matters worse, she was very particular about where I shopped for various items and where her bills needed to be paid. In spite of the initial awkward moments, a dear friendship was being cultivated. With all of our discussions about funeral arrangements and end-of-life issues, I felt the need to also attend to her spiritual needs. Faith was not a hot topic. She would quickly change the subject anytime I brought it up. She had admitted to being baptized Catholic, but consistently rejected offers to receive the sacraments. What eventually surfaced were her feelings of unworthiness, shame, and guilt from falling away from the faith after her father tragically died in a car accident. 6 weeks before she died, my heart grew restless watching Joan physically deteriorate. With great concern for the state of her soul, I reached out to a Catholic priest. Father Jim had been a longtime family friend, and he agreed to come and meet her. I distinctly remember the look on her face when we arrived. It was a potent mix of anger, fear, and betrayal, all directed at me. I couldn't look her in the eye. After pleading our case, Father Jim, in a matter-of-fact manner, sat down and started speaking to her like they were old friends. I sat next to Joan, hoping to comfort her and regain her trust. She gripped my hand with displeasure. As Father Jim spoke, it became increasingly clear that his words were those of Christ. Through him, Christ was speaking to Joan's nature as a beloved daughter and of God's unending love and mercy. At some point in the conversation, she let go of my hand. With that subtle cue, I left them alone. This space made room for her to receive the holy and healing sacraments. From that day forward, Joan was different. Her fear of death diminished. She was at peace. Our visits together were genuine and open. I felt like we shared more than a common friendship. Intellectually, I knew that as a physician, I had nothing to offer her. It was the healing power of the sacraments that allowed Joan to now receive God's love and support through me. The divine physician and healer was showing me how he desired to work not just for her, but through me. Well, we'll pick up the second part of this story and how it impacted this doctor's life, becoming a caregiver. But I was just thinking of a quick phone call and a few other phone calls I had to make because I learned that my doctor had left the profession or left the area when I was just going to have a general physical. And so I'm calling around the horn for a new doctor, and I made an appointment tentatively with a particular doctor. And then I'm told, I said, to the secretary, the first session is not a physical, it's a sit down. I need to meet my doctor. I need to sit down and find out who he or she is. It makes a difference when it comes to my body, mind, and soul. This is not a car going to the auto mechanic. And I directly said, I'm tired of atheists, practical atheists, agnostics. Can I find a doctor that actually cares about me, body, mind, and soul? Because they believe in God. And thank God she didn't get upset at it. She thought it was a logical question. And then I learned that he doesn't see the patient on the first try. I responded, oh, is he that important? I may have to cancel that appointment because I'm really looking for a doctor like this one that we're talking about right now. We'll hear all about his story and his journey next week. This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. God bless. Have a great week. Let your light shine. That is what it's all about here at WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. But we need to hear your story. You want your voice to be his voice. That is making the faith known to others. Please, my number is 877-625-3727. Tim Kilcoyne, TalkCatholic.com. St. Mother Teresa told us, your ministry is your work right where you are. Grab on to this microphone. God bless.